What's up guys, my name is Stephanie, you're watching New Light Reptiles. This here is my friend Lili, and today we are going to talk all about bearded dragon diet and supplementation. This is a topic that is pretty heavy duty. There's just so much that goes into it. It can get a little bit confusing as far as what supplements to use, how often, what foods are safe for bearded dragons to eat, what their diet should look like. So get out a pen and paper because we are going to get into it. I do want to throw out a quick disclaimer here that this is just information that I obtained through my own research and talking to my vet. Just make sure that you are doing plenty of your own research and talking to your vet as well. But with all that said, let's go ahead and get into the video. All right, I'm sorry. Lili decided to already dip out on the video here. She's sitting down here on the floor, sun basking. So I don't blame her. I'm gonna let her be there even though she is the star of the show. But anyways, so bearded dragons are lizards that are omnivores, and in the wild they eat a variety of different insects, the occasional small rodent or small lizard, and then they also munch on a variety of vegetation. Now, to replicate this in captivity, I have taken advice from Dr. Jonathan Howard, who is also known as the beardie vet. Also, Reptifiles is a great source, and then talking to my own vet, as I mentioned before. And what I'm going to share with you today is just the feeding schedule that I have researched and the various types of food that are safe to feed your bearded dragon. All right, so let's get started with feeding schedules and how often and how much. To start off, let's talk about hatchlings. So those are bearded dragons between 0 to 3 months of age. With these guys, you will want to offer insects every single day, as much as they will eat. And we want to make sure that the insects are head size, so no larger than the size of your bearded dragon's head. I will get into detail here later in the video as far as what are acceptable feeders to feed to your bearded dragon. Also with hatchlings, we want to be offering salads or vegetables every single day and offer as much as they will eat. As for supplementation, all insects should be dusted lightly with calcium, and all salads should be dusted with calcium as well. However, 2 times per week, swap out that calcium on the salads with a multivitamin. A lot of these supplements do come with the option of either having added vitamin D or not. Now, this can get a little bit tricky as well. Bearded dragons absolutely must have vitamin D3 in order to absorb that calcium. So the best way for them to receive the vitamin D3 is actually through UVB lighting rather than the supplements. So assuming that you have proper UVB lighting, which would be something like a Linear Arcadia T5 or a ReptiSun T5 10.0, then you can ensure that your bearded dragon is getting that vitamin D that they need. However, UVB bulbs do still emit light even when they're not emitting the UVB. So it's really important that we are swapping out those bulbs every 6 months or using a solar meter to check them. This is just the most efficient and natural way for your bearded dragon to be getting that vitamin D3, and it's just a better way rather than the supplements. So if their UVB is spot on, then you really don't need a vitamin with the added D3. However, if you are really concerned about it, you can get a multivitamin with the D3 and do it no more than about 2 times per month. So like every 2 weeks. Do be careful though, because vitamin D can be overdosed and it can be very dangerous and fatal to your bearded dragon. All right. Carrying on. So next we need to discuss juveniles. So these are going to be bearded dragons approximately under 12 inches long. They will need to be offered insects every single day. However, we're gonna limit it down to about 5 to 6 head size insects per day. They also still need to be offered that salad and vegetables every single day as well. Calcium should be dusted on all insect feedings and salads, except 2 times per week when we are putting a multivitamin on the salad. I also want to note that it is important that we are always dusting our insects with calcium because insects have a higher phosphorus to calcium ratio. And in fact, the calcium is rather low and they carry it in their exoskeletons, which is something that bearded dragons don't really digest and therefore consume. So we need that calcium to balance out that high phosphorus ratio. So I know that's a little confusing, but just keep in mind that all feeder insects should be dusted with calcium. Okay, so now we are going to discuss adult bearded dragons or bearded dragons over about 12 inches in length. These guys are going to be cut way back on the protein. So they only need to be offered insects, about 3 to 4 insects 2 times per week. And then we are going to be offering salads and vegetables only 3 times a week as well. This may seem crazy and it may seem like, oh no, I am starving my bearded dragon, but trust me, you're not. This is better for them. It's natural for them. Their metabolisms are very slow. Their growing has slowed down, and it is very, very common and easy for bearded dragons to become obese, which is very, very dangerous for reptiles. And just like before with the adults, we need to make sure we are dusting all the insects with calcium, all the salads with calcium as well, and then swapping out 1 salad per week with a multivitamin. Now with gravid females and/or females who are laying eggs, you can offer a little bit more protein for them as they do need that replenished in their bodies. So about 4 to 5 insects at 2 times per week. Now, I get questions all the time from people who are concerned because their bearded dragons just will not eat salads. They will not eat their vegetables. They only want bugs. This is very common, especially for younger bearded dragons. However, I have been able to make it work. I have rescued older bearded dragons that literally lived off of only insects, and I've gotten them to eat salad. There are a few tricks that you can do. The number one thing that I recommend, especially starting off with your youngster, is to offer their salads first. That's the first thing they get in the morning before any insects, and hopefully they are hungry enough that they will go ahead and try a little bit of that salad and just wait till way later in the day to feed them the insects. Another option you can do is use bee pollen. Bee pollen is something that a lot of bearded dragons really like. It's also safe and healthy for them. You can sprinkle a little bit of that on their salads and hopefully that will entice them to try it. Another thing that really worked for me when I was trying to get Lili to eat salads as a youngster was just adding a worm or 2 into the salad. So something like a black soldier fly larvae or a superworm. It gets that movement going that really entices a bearded dragon to eat. So it'll just wiggle that salad around, and it worked for me. It got Lyle to immediately go after his salads and finally start eating them. You can also just try wiggling the salad around yourself to try and get them interested in it. Or another trick that I've done as well is I've made hornworm or superworm lettuce wraps. Well, they're not lettuce wraps, but I would use something like a mustard green or a good staple leafy green for bearded dragons, wrap the worm up and then feed it to my bearded dragon, and that would get them to start tasting and consuming some of those vegetables. And honestly, my biggest bit of advice as far as that goes is just to not give up. Keep trying, keep offering the salads. Okay, so now that we know how often to feed our bearded dragons, how much, and what supplements to be using, let's go ahead and get into what exactly are we feeding our bearded dragons. So we are going to start out with plants. So there are staple vegetables that you can feed your bearded dragons, and then good mixers or occasional vegetables. So some of the staples that you can feed every single day are going to be greens like turnip greens, mustard greens, cactus pads, arugula, and collard greens. For those mixers and occasional vegetables, we can do stuff like butternut squash, zucchini, dandelion greens, cilantro, basil. There is a huge list. I will go ahead and link that as well in the caption below so you guys can check it out. I do want to add that avocado, onion, and mushroom is poisonous to your bearded dragon, so definitely never feed those. All veggies should be chopped up into bite-sized pieces for your bearded dragon. Now, there is a misconception that bearded dragons need fruit. Fruit is not something your bearded dragon needs at all. You can give it to them as a very occasional treat. So we're talking maybe one time per month. Fruit is very high in sugar and therefore can really lend to bearded dragon obesity. So there's just really no need for it, but we do want to treat our animals once in a while. So occasionally, about once a month, my bearded dragons will get something like a blueberry, or they can have a raspberry or a little tiny bit of apple, banana, etc. All right, so now we are going to discuss protein and or feeder insects. So staple daily insects that are great for your bearded dragon are going to be things like dubia roaches, black soldier fly larvae, crickets, or discoid roaches. And then for a more occasional or treat type of feeder, you can do things like hornworms, which most bearded dragons go absolutely crazy for, silkworms, waxworms, mealworms, butterworms, etc. Do keep in mind that insects should never be wild caught. Never feed your bearded dragon insects that you catch outside. There's no way of telling that they may contain something like herbicides or pesticides. They could just be contaminated and not healthy for your bearded dragon. So there is just absolutely no reason to feed these to your bearded dragons. When it comes to feeding, you can simply just feed them using feeder tongs. They also make escape-proof dishes, which are great for things like roaches or superworms. The crickets do tend to hop out of those. Also, if you're comfortable with it, you can put some insects in their enclosure, which is great enrichment for them to hunt and chase around. However, there are insects like crickets that do bite, so you'll want to keep an eye on them and make sure you are removing any uneaten insects from the enclosure. The final thing that I want to touch on today is just water, hydration for your bearded dragons. A lot of times people will say they never see their bearded dragon drink water. There's even people that will say that bearded dragons don't even need a water dish in their enclosure. This is not okay. You definitely should include a water dish and always have clean, fresh water available to your animal, even if you're not seeing them drink it. It should be there if and when they need it. Bearded dragons do get most of their hydration through their diet. So one thing that you can do is soak your vegetables, like your leafy greens, just soak them in some water for about 24 hours before feeding. And this is a great way to ensure that your beardie is staying hydrated. All right, guys, well, this is all I have for you today. And in fact, Lili just took a poop on the rug over there. So I guess this is the end of the video in true bearded dragon spirit, because that's what they do. But anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me. If you liked what you learned today, please hit that subscribe button. We are putting out weekly reptile educational videos, and I'd love to hear in the comments suggestions for other topics that you might want to learn about. And until next time, have a great day.